Welcome to Haverchat, a Havercamp culture cast where we take you behind the scenes at Havercamp Group. My name is Jessica Mortweed, and I'm Chief Marketing Officer at Havercamp Group. I'm your guest host for this bonus episode. Today's guest is Todd Wuestenberg, the Chief Culture Officer for Havercamp Group. Welcome, Todd.
Oh, it's great to be here. It feels a little awkward sitting in this seat, but I'm ready for it.
You know, Todd, we got to interview each of the leadership team members, and now it's your turn that we hear more about our host of the show.
Yeah, so I'm actually very excited to be here today.
Great. Well, thanks, Todd. Mm-hmm. First, let's go ahead and jump in. This first section is the 4 F's, the family, from, fun, and future. We'll start off with that from there. So tell us a little bit about where you're from.
Yeah, my from begins with I was born in eastern Iowa, grew up in rural Scott County, Iowa, agriculture kind of background, small town. When I was the age of 11, we moved into town, big town of 1,500 Durant. Graduated from high school and eventually found my way here to Ames, Iowa, to Iowa State University. Iowa State was my third college, so I jokingly like to say I crammed my 4 years actually into 6. I was a super senior two times, but eventually graduated here from Iowa State University, met my wife, which I'll talk about more in the family. Actually got my degree in education, started off teaching high school. Did that for a very short time period, but then had the opportunity to come back here to Ames. Loved Central Iowa, love Ames, Iowa. And my wife and I were able to settle back into Ames. I got a 2-year position, as being the freshman director for the salt company, the Salt Network. And at the end of those 2 years, I had a decision to make, which path I wanted to follow. And so this is my professional from, where at that time, I had a gentleman that was a part of my life in our church by the name of Dixon Jensen, a very wonderful influencer, somebody that really shaped me to being who I am today, who asked if I would want to join his company. He was just getting started. Jensen Homes was the name of that company, and he wanted me to basically be a site superintendent for him. I knew nothing about construction. It was rather embarrassing, some of the questions I asked, but Dixon was somebody who really believed in me, wanted to invest in me, and he really wanted somebody that would, he was working out of the basement of his house at that time, so he wanted somebody that he knew, somebody that he could trust, being around his family, and he needed to be freed up so that he could drum up more business. And so I started working there on that construction side as a site superintendent, project manager for 5 years. And then the opportunity came where he had built up his portfolio enough to do property management. So I asked Dixon if I could have that opportunity to be his property manager. So did that for 5 years. And so at the end of 10 years of working for the Jensen Group, I had known Brent Havercamp since our days at Iowa State University, went back quite a ways. I actually asked Brent if he would mind being a reference on my resume. Mm-hmm. And Brent said, well, sure, but actually, why don't you come work for me? Mm-hmm. At the time, I declined, not because I really didn't want to work for Brent, but just the timing just didn't seem right. Really, about a week later, we were coming out of another meeting, and he asked how things were going. I said, well, nothing yet. And he said, well, why don't you come work for me? So we had a conversation, and that was 20 and a half years ago. And I really have enjoyed my journey with Havercamp Properties, with Havercamp Group, and that is my professional from.
That is very well said, Todd, and definitely a great background. And, we can see how you got from there to here. So that's great. Let's talk next about your family. So share a little bit about your family. Yeah.
Met my wife, Kendra, here at Iowa State University. We were married, each had a year of school left, so we lived in married student housing, University Village. And it was really we were both in education. We were both doing our student teaching at the time. So I felt like it was like a warm up to what, real life was going to be like. So once we graduated, like I said, we moved away for a short time period, both in education. And then we came back here, and when we came back here to Ames, it was I was actually working part-time with the salt company, and Kendra was working full-time. We didn't have any children yet, and I really thought I was going to stay in education, but like I said, there was just a different pathway for me. And through all that, actually, when I decided to start working for Dixon Jensen, that's when we're expecting our first child. And so we have 4 children now, 3 boys and a girl. Our boys are all married. Our oldest just got married a couple weeks ago. So I have 3 wonderful daughter-in-laws, and we will also soon have a son-in-law, our daughter. So we got Michael, Caleb, Nathan. Kendra and I have been married for 34 years. And then Ashley, our daughter, just like I said, just got engaged. And so she'll be bringing a son-in-law into the mix. And I know I mentioned this in some other episodes, I know I did with Paul, is that we are expecting our first grandchild. January 12th is the due date. So yeah, that's a little bit of the family.
Yeah, your status will be changing soon.
The status will be changing soon, and I can't wait for that stage of life.
Yeah, that's great. So fun. Let's talk about what you like to do for fun.
Fun has really changed over the years. When I was younger, it was like playing sports. Then it transitioned once we had kids to coaching sports and being involved in that manner. Now at this stage of my life, it's about being more of a spectator and watching sports. Sports activities have been something that's always been a part of my life. There was a time in my life where I was a runner and had done multiple marathons and half marathons. And, in that time period, it really taught me a lot of lessons that I think transfer well into the business world or just into life in general. Today, I've slowed down. I don't do any of that running. It's more about just being outside, spending time with my wife, doing, activities outdoor, whether it's biking or working in the garden. I call it my trifecta. If I can be outside, be with Kendra and doing something, like I said, bike riding or something like that. That's like the trifecta. I like to travel whenever we can. I like to see and explore different parts of the world. Had the opportunity to travel to France this summer. Kendra and I had hosted an exchange student a couple years ago, and her family invited us over to France, and it was just a wonderful experience because it was like the real France. We stayed with her family. They took us around to all these different places, and whenever we can see different parts of the world, we take advantage of that.
Yeah, that is so much fun.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about your future. So I know that you just celebrated your 20 years with Haverchat this year. So congratulations on that big milestone. What do you say to people when they ask you about your future at Haverchat Group?
Yeah, my specific future with Haverchat Group, I say, first of all, I feel like I got 10 more years in my tank. There is something, and maybe it's a little bit of pride, that would like to see 30 years. Sure. I'm very happy and proud to be a part of this organization. I really like supporting, all the leaders the best way I can. Having that friendship with Brent and Paul, all of that, inspires me to, want to keep going for another 10 years, if you will. But through that, Brent has this 10X vision that he started in 2020, and that really excites me to want to be a part of that growth and then just get ready to kind of hand the baton off to that next generation of leaders. So, we'll talk about it, I'm sure, at some point in our conversation today, just how important leadership development is. And, thinking about that next generation of leaders and that idea of legacy. So when I think about the next 10 years, it's with that in mind, to finish well, hand the baton off to that next generation of leaders who will then take Haverchat to that next stage. Yeah.
Yeah, you've got 10 years to work on the succession plan. So
exactly.
Lots of transition time and a great way to end well.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about a typical work week for Todd. What does that look like?
A typical week is, it seems like...
Is there a typical week?
There is no such thing as a typical... Paul gave this answer in episode number 8 about meetings. I really feel like meetings is a lot of what I do, but I like meeting with people. Today, for an example, drove over to Eastern Iowa and did an onboarding welcome meeting and met with 3 newest employees there. So part of my week, depending on where we're at with new employees, is meeting with new employees. And not only the first time, but then we do a 30-day follow-up with every new employee. We give them the book, What the Heck is EOS? Ask them to read that in their first 30 days, and we'll come back later and have a conversation about that. Because I sit in two different seats, primarily, yes, it's the Chief Culture Officer with Haverchat Group, but I also still sit in the seat as being the Director of Operations for the Ativo Trail. So some days or some weeks, my days might entail me spending a lot of time at the Ativo Trails working with the community directors and sitting in on level 10 meetings. I sit on the Haverchat Properties leadership team. There's sometimes I might jump in on the Haverchat Group leadership team. So yeah, a lot of meetings, but it's a lot about thinking about, being very purposeful, intentional with our culture. What are things that we can do to just keep getting better and better, how we can better serve all of our residents, our customers, our stakeholders, the investors. What are the little things that we can keep doing to just getting 1% better. So sometimes my weeks are consumed with thinking about those type of things. And then it's just that persistence, working hard, but also working smart, looking at different indicators, key performance indicators. I'm really big into our culture survey and looking at, what the data is telling us and how we can make the work experience better. So then we can just have better work.
As long as I've known you, you've always been focused on culture. When I started, we had a program that you developed called 31 Basics, HP
Yes.
31 Basics. So I remember that. Now that's grown into our core values with Sherry. From your perspective, what impact has culture had within Haverchat?
Yes, thank you, Jessica. I was reflecting on this the other day. Our culture journey, I'll say, really began in 2015 with the reading of the book 31 Practices, which prompted me then to have a very intentional conversation with Brent to say, okay, every organization has a culture. The question is it going to be by design or is it going to be by default? Is it going to be, purposeful or is it going to just be accidental? Obviously, we said, hey, we wanted to be really more intentional with this. So that really began the journey of wanting to be a purpose-driven, values-driven type of organization. So we went through this it was almost a year process of going through, what were the values that helped shape us to where we were at that point, and what values do we want to continue to emulate in our organization. And we believe that values are that lens in which you look through as you go through the decision-making process. I mean, your values it's the way you think, the way you speak, the way you act, and eventually those become your behaviors, and eventually those behaviors become your reputation, not only as an individual, but obviously as an organization as well. So, we wanted to really be intentional through that. And so that's where we came up with Sherry, service or stewardship, and then the hard work, accountability, results driven, and integrity. And then with our purpose statement, our first purpose statement when we came off of the 31 Basics, we had a really good purpose statement. The only problem was it was really
long. We quizzed people over it. Remember when we had those little paper quizzes?
We did have those paper quizzes, and I look back at that and go, why did we do that? I understand, but really what it revealed was it was just too much. And as I talk to leaders today and we talk about purpose statements, and it was when we introduced an EOS, 2 years later in 2017, it was EOS that really said and challenged us, your purpose statement needs to be no more than 7 words, and then it becomes more memorable. And so after we had that, paragraph long purpose statement, we sat down as a leadership team to, okay, how are we going to bring this down to 7 words? Then you get really intentional because words do matter. And so, that's what started Haverchat Properties, which, started the process of bringing EOS into the organization of creating communities where you love to live. And yeah, it's just so succinct, but very, very impactful. So culture has impacted us in the sense that I say it this way, culture is the soil and your business strategy is the seed. And so you take that business strategy and if you sow it, if you will, into good soil, you're going to get a good, bountiful harvest. But if you sow that business strategy in soil that's not so good, it's going to either get choked out or it's not going to have very much root, to it, and it's going to just wash out. So, yeah, culture I see as being that soil for business strategy to flourish in.
You talked a little bit about the creating communities where you love to live. On the HG side, we have growing together through real estate. So what does that statement mean to you?
Yeah, growing together, really it's talking about all the stakeholders that are part of Haverchat Group. So it's from the employees to the leadership, to our customers, to our residents and to our investors. So growing together, being a coach at heart, I love the phrase, being the best version of yourself. And so when I think about that, growing together, it's like, okay, together, we're all going to become the best version of ourselves, and we're all going to help each other become the best version of themselves. And so, I really like, obviously, the team approach, but I like how that purpose statement really encompasses or involves all the stakeholders within Haverchat.
Yeah, teamwork really makes the dream work, and that's
what they
really
say.
What it's all about.
That's right.
So let's talk a little bit more in depth about Sherry. You've talked about her a little bit already, but we've got the stewardship and service, hard work, accountability, results-driven, integrity. Which value motivates you the most, or do you relate to the most?
Yeah, it's integrity. I think they're all really good, but I think at the core or at the foundation of it has to be integrity, your character. All those other things are very important, obviously, but the character, I believe, really will drive. If I'm a person of good character, I'm going to want to steward well. If I'm a person of good character, I'm going to want to serve others. Again, good character, integrity, I'm going to want to work hard. Good character, integrity, the accountability, being results driven, all those. So I feel like it's like the engine that drives all the other core values.
So when I think of you, I think of service. Obviously, you represent all of those, but I was taking some time to reflect, which core value I really thought about for you. And really it comes down to service. You've always worked to serve our teams, working on the culture. I know that your title is Chief Culture Officer, but I think it could also be Chief Connection Officer. So I often see you just making those connections. I remember going to a Prairie Point event and you were asking students who were there, hey, where are you from? Oh, I know someone from Algona. Do you know this person? And so you're always working to make connections so that people feel comfortable, whether that's introducing employees to each other. And I remember, I think you said to Kenzie when I met her, like, oh, you guys actually have the same personality profile. And so just making those connections and, really trying to make people feel connected and involved and just serving them by making them feel better. So, you've even been an honorary Christmas party committee member as well. So yeah, just right. Always serving the company and working on the culture.
Yeah. I mean, service, for me personally, I define success as being measured by helping other people be successful, and how you help other people be successful is by serving them. So I really appreciate you sharing that. But yeah, thank you.
So who within your teams and people that you work with is letting their Sherry shine?
As I mentioned, I have two roles, and in my role as being the Director of Operations for the Ativo Trails, I have 3 team members there that I work very closely with, and that's Stephanie Gerleman in Waukee, and Amber Soy in Ankeny, and then Kim Lawrence, who is our Senior Leasing Counselor. All 3 of them, I think, their middle name could be Sherry. They all, again, represent all those core values. Specifically when I think about Stephanie and the work that she's done there in Waukee, the one that pops off the page would be service. She serves the community well. She serves her team well. She's created a great, subculture there within Ativo Waukee, and that's why we see the success of Waukee. It's great community, great project, all those type of things. But Stephanie really does an outstanding job there. And then with Amber, I've had the opportunity to work with Amber for many years now. It started off on the student side, then it was on the conventional side, and now we're working together in the 55 plus active adult. And for Amber, it's not on the Haverchat properties as far as core value, but I think of stewardship. Amber is a person who really wants to steward things well. She wants to be that person of integrity, and that would be another one, that I would label with Amber. She wants to make sure that whatever she does it with excellence, and that she represents well. And she's really Team Havercamp in lots of different ways. So really appreciate Amber. And then for Kim, I would go back to service as well. For Kim, she really knows our residents. She knows the people who are coming in who are thinking about wanting to move into our community, and she builds such a great relationship with all those people. And then once they do move in, they want to maintain that relationship with her. And it's really hard for her because, she has all these people, but she manages it very well. And then lastly, Amanda Niehaus. Amanda is our traveling property manager, and she does report to me, although she really works a lot closer with Jason and Vinny. But, with Amanda, I've really enjoyed having the opportunity to mentor her. She is such a kind, caring person. If I could pick one core value right now that she's emulating, it's that of hard work. Being the traveling property manager means that she leaves her home in Carroll and she'll go wherever we ask her to. And she's been spending a lot of time in Cedar Rapids here lately. So, she drives over there and she doesn't get to sleep in her own bed. She has to sleep in, the model unit bed, but she just keeps showing up, doing the work because she really cares. So yeah, those are the 4 people that I really want to, give shout outs to because they are letting their Sherry shine. But then I get to work with so many great people like Graydon over here and you, Jessica, and all the leadership team. And, I can feel Paul's pain a little bit. I'm afraid I'm going to forget somebody because there are so many wonderful people that I get to work with, from Dave to Jason and Vinny, like I said, and Kenzie and Jordan, I really love the people here in the team. And that's when people ask me, what do you love about Havercamp? Well, it's hands down the people, hands
Absolutely.
down.
Mm-hmm. Such an easy answer, but it's the right one. It's so good. What updates would you like to share? Are there some initiatives that you're working on that you'd like to give people a glimpse of?
Yeah. For 2026, I'm excited for 2 things. We recently closed on some ground in Omaha, so I'm really excited about the Ativo Trail brand expanding outside of our state and getting into the Omaha market. I really believe in the Ativo Trail brand. I have literally seen lives change as a result of moving into our community. So that's something I can get really passionate about. So I'm excited about impacting more lives through, the Ativo Trail community. So, as I think about 2026, I know Zach and his team will be working hard to start construction so that really excites me. And I know we won't be opening up the doors, for about 18 months after construction starts, but, just that first step of getting into another market, and especially another market outside of our state, I'm really excited about. On the culture side, Brent stood up in front of all of the employees just about 6 weeks ago as we had our all company meeting, and he looked every person in the eye and said, "You are the most valuable resource we have in our organization. If it wasn't for you, we wouldn't be where we're at. And if it wasn't for you, we're not going to be able to get to where it is that we want to go." And he used that as a launching point to talk about our talent development plan. As we evolve and grow as an organization, we're realizing, we've always known it, but we're putting more dedicated resources, more time into helping, again, the coach speak come out, helping everyone be the best version of themselves. So what kind of catalog, tools, what kind of resources can we provide for our employees? So in 2026, every employee will have the opportunity to go through the talent development program and looking to advance themselves both professionally and personally.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so now, Todd, we're going to move on to the most anticipated part of our Haverchat episode, Haverchamps. You're familiar with the game, Todd. I believe you created it and you've been the host of the game. And I should preface this by saying I am not bitter at all about placing 6th overall or having to use all 3 passes. But I'll remind you of the rules. So we'll give you 94 seconds on the clock. Those 94 seconds represent the year that our business started, 1994. You are allowed to pass a maximum of 3 times, after which you must answer each question after that. Otherwise, the game will end. So the guest is scored on the number of questions they answer in that amount of time. And
we've established already in the past that answered doesn't necessarily mean correct.
Yes, but we know that integrity is Todd's favorite core value.
That's right. You got me on that one.
And he uses integrity in everything.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I woke up this morning kind of nervous about this part because I just really don't know what to expect, what you're going to throw at me, Jessica.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I used your preset list of questions.
Okay. Well, that's good.
And I did select from there. I did put in a couple extras, but I pretty much used your set of questions. So
I was afraid you might give me some math questions.
I did think about it, but I did not.
Okay. All right. Good.
All right. Are we ready for the clock, Graydon? All right. We've got the clock set. Here we go. What is one thing that you never leave home without?
My phone.
Your phone. That's a good answer. What is your favorite leadership book?
My favorite leadership book is the one I'm reading right now, which is Unreasonable Hospitality.
That's a great one. I haven't read it yet.
Yeah, okay.
What's your favorite season and why?
It's spring because it's the dawn of a new kind of feel, everything's turning green.
If you could instantly master any skill, what would it be?
Playing the guitar. I've always wanted to have musical talent like that.
What's your favorite way to unwind?
Favorite way to unwind would be just spending time outside next to my pond.
If you could have dinner with any historical figure, who would it be?
It would have to be Jesus. That would be a very interesting dinner.
What is your favorite board game?
Settlers of Catan.
I was thinking you'd guess that. And follow-up question, in the game of Catan, what is your favorite resource? Brick, wood, wheat, sheep, or ore?
Ore.
Ore, okay. Project you are most proud of?
The project I'm most proud of. I guess I'm going to just be present, and that's just working through the culture, especially thinking about the talent development plan going into 2026. Very proud of where we're going with that. Wow. Those are some deep questions that made me think. And I decided to give some slow answers to. Did I even get double digits, Graydon? I got 9. When you start off at the pace of okay, this is the game we're going with. It's not fast. It's going to be some really deep thought-filled questions.
I did rewatch the episode you did with Brent, your first episode.
And it was slow.
And so I just wanted to give him, credit for having to deal with slower, longer form questions, and thought we'd kick it old school. I might have drawn it out too much. Sorry, Todd.
No, I really enjoyed that.
I did have a lot of other questions. I even had, my other sub question was, who's your favorite child? So you didn't even get there. I was trying to get you to use a pass, which you didn't use a pass. So,
somebody said, when it comes to grandchildren, which one's your favorite grandchild? They said the one that's sitting on my lap at the moment. So
okay,
when that happens, that's going to be my answer.
That is great. We didn't get to the question, your personal mission statement. So
yeah, a personal mission statement. I believe that, I want to glorify God and enjoy Him forever. And so what that looks like, and it goes back to even when Paul and I were having our discussion on that episode 8, it's about, making sure that, loving God and loving others. And, so that would be, I don't know if it's a mission statement as much as it is how I want to live my life in a way that is not about me and it's about others.
Mm-hmm. Just in case Graydon wants to put up the scoreboard, we could go ahead and throw that up now just so that we could see all of the champs. I know that I'm going to retain my 6th place.
Well, I'm in last.
But yes, this would put you under Brent. So Brent had, I believe, 21. And so this is... I
didn't even hit double digits. Yeah, that's
we were so close. I guess I sandbagged that too much, but sorry about that. But, it's all in fun. So
absolutely, it's all in fun.
So as we close, what is there one thing that you wish that you would have said, or a special shout out?
There's a couple different things that come to mind. Leadership development is so critical in any organization. And one of the things you talked about, projects that I'm proud of, actually, developing our leadership and training program is something that I think is very special, that I've enjoyed being a part of since 2017, 18 as well. And the reason I bring that up is because I have the opportunity, a couple weeks ago, I was being interviewed by some leaders in training. It's part of what we ask them to do, is to set aside some time to sit down with leaders and interview them. And during that interview, one of the people said, Todd, I think you mentioned your wife a lot, during this process. And it's like, well, yeah, because she has been so critical in my life. And I think how I described it in that interview is, when you have a healthy relationship, and something I'm very grateful that years ago, mentors, told us how important it was to, work on your marriage, and how you should always keep dating your wife, and you should, set aside date night. And so that when you get to that point in your life, like where we're at, where you're empty nesters, you're not just looking at each other like, well, who is this person? Because you can get caught up into, your kids and their activities and things like that. And so we really were purposeful, throughout the years to focus on our relationship. And as a result, old school was like, you leave your personal at home, and when you cross that door into the workplace, you don't bring that into the workplace. But we know that's not true. The work-life balance doesn't exist. Actually, I like to call it work-life harmony. That's what you're looking for. So I share all that because of where we are relationally, Kendra and I have a lot greater capacity to come into work and not have to worry about things that, because, oh geez, I said this before I left, to go to work, why did I say those type of things? There's still all those kind of moments, but relationally things are strong so that, I can show up to work and be present for work. And then when I go home, because I work in such a great workplace, I can go home and be present at home. So I guess the long answer to that question is I just really want to give a shout out to my wife, Kendra. Thank you, for all of her support over the years and how instrumental she is.
And it's always been fun to see her every year at the Christmas party. I've been fortunate to have her sit at my table many of the years. So that's always been a joy to see you both together and watch her grow as well. So, well, I want to thank you, Todd, for allowing me to guest host your podcast so we could learn about you, our host. And you've done such a great job with the podcast that I'm sure people were like, I want to learn more about Todd. Now you can. And so thanks for giving our listeners a glimpse of you and your life and your background. I would like you to take a moment to just talk about what's coming next with the podcast. We're kind of moving into a new phase. We are moving into a new phase. Meeting with you and Graydon and then Kenzie and Briar, we think there's great potential because there are so many great leaders in our organization that we can lean into those people and get some life lessons. So Haverchat's going to become a leadership podcast where we're going to be getting together with key leaders, just having conversations. Sometimes it will be one-on-one like this. Sometimes it'll be, two people in the room. And what we really want to do with that time period, again, is to lean into all the lessons that these men and women have learned over the years and really try to help people understand what it looks like to be a leader. Well, thank you so much, Todd, for giving us this glimpse, and we're looking forward to the next episode and being able to see all of those future guests. At Havercamp, we believe that the strongest cultures are cultivated and grown with care. Culture isn't just one person's job, it belongs to all of us. Until next time, keep learning and leading.